Hey, welcome. This is Here's to Good Health. My name is Linda Prezioso. I'm a nurse practitioner at Family Medical Center. And tonight we have Caroline Cusick Crawford, who is this girl's got more letters behind her name than anybody I know. She's a JD, which is a Juris Doctorate, which is a attorney. Then she's a registered nurse, and then she's got a master's in the science of nursing. She's got a master's in health administration with an emphasis on informatics. She has a Bachelor of Arts, and she has a certified in emergency nursing. I took that test and I didn't pass it, but I never went back. It's very hard. So anyway, Caroline is here. You know, last week we had Dr. Boyette, and we talked about hospice and quality of life versus quantity of life. And I thought it would be a good follow-up to have Caroline here tonight because she's an attorney, she's a nurse, she's worked in critical care, she's worked in the emergency room, she knows about end of life from both a nursing perspective and now as a lawyer and the legalities of it all. So we're going to talk about that. If you have any questions for either of us, today is the 25th of August and we are live. And we would love for you to call. You do not have to ask a specific question about end of life, or you can, of course, but both of us are nurses and we'll work really hard to answer your questions appropriately. And if I can't give you the answer, I'll look it up and give it to you next week. So Caroline, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you.
It's just fun. Caroline's my friend, and we spent last Saturday together at the farmers market, and then we went to, what was it, Lafayette Square?
Lafayette Square.
And that was really nice, and had some yummy food, and came home, and so we get together. There's about 6 of us that get together. There's 5 of us are nurses, and 1 of us is a jeweler. Don't ask me how the jeweler got in there, but she's there, and we love her, and so we'll keep doing that too, won't we? Yes. So we had Dr. Boyette, and I think I told you that he was really interested in meeting you and talking to you, and we talked about maybe the 3 of us doing a show, you and Dr. Boyette, and I'd kind of sit on the sideline and let the 2 of you do all the talking.
That would be great.
Yeah, I think that his interest was really piqued about what you do, and then I said that you focus a lot on wills and estates and that kind of thing, and so we'll see if it comes to pass or not. I don't know. People say a lot of things and then things don't work out. But anyway, so tell my audience about you. How did you go from having a Bachelor of Arts?
I went to ECU in my first life, I guess. My first part of my career, I went to East Carolina and I studied journalism and became a writer, and that's where my bachelor's comes in. And I got a bachelor's of Arts in communications. And from there, I moved to Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And one of the things that I did for the newspaper where I worked, the Rocky Mount newspaper, many years ago.
Telegram.
Yes. one of my assignments was to collect information about things that were going on in the hospitals. So I would go and meet people in the hospitals, and I met the director of nursing at one of those hospitals, and she convinced me what a wonderful opportunity it was to be a nurse. So when it came time for a shifting in careers, I went back to school and became a nurse, and I went to Nash Community College.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so I went to Nash Community College. At first I thought, well, I might not like this, but I took one class and I was hooked.
Yep.
So just kept on going with nursing education. And from there I worked at the hospital and went from bedside nursing, taking care of people on the front lines, to departmental leadership, to hospital-wide, organization-wide leadership, and quality and compliance. And from there I went to law school. So
Awesome.
it was a journey,
Yes.
a journey of many small steps. It was not a leap from one thing to another. It was just a gradual leading of God saying, go here, go here, go here. If He had shown me the whole big picture,
You wouldn't have done it.
I would have been terrified and freaked out and probably not
Right.
followed through. But
Yeah.
there is this magical way that things get revealed to us one small step at a time,
That's
where
right.
all we have to do is take that one next step,
Yep.
and then the next one comes after it, and we don't have to worry so much about the far distant future. But what we're talking about today is planning for the future. For some people,
future. That's
like
right.
with the people you were discussing with Dr. Boyette and hospice, they have a different perspective on what
Yes.
future means, because
Yes.
they know that what they're doing is trying to order their steps so that the last parts of their life, and they already embrace that that's the last parts of their life, are going to go the way that they want them to do, to give them control and dignity and a plan to make sure that that follows what is most important to them. And while often we recognize that people who are already really sick and end of life need to make those decisions, we go, oh, we have plenty of time. We have all the time in the world. But tomorrow is not promised,
That's
only
exactly
today.
right. That's
So
exactly right.
for those people, it's important to plan for what they want to happen with their bodies and their end-of-life decisions and the stuff that they've accumulated. And for the rest of us, it's exactly the same. We need to plan for what it is that we want. What do we want to happen to our bodies if something horrible were to happen? We don't anticipate that, but we never know what's going to happen. No one knows the time that they're going to pass away, and we try to prepare for that the best we can. And part of what I do as an attorney and as a nurse is to help people evaluate what their choices are, and help people be educated about what's going to happen if they don't make those decisions now.
Right.
The state of North Carolina has filled in those gaps for you. Not everybody knows that, which amazes me, but it's true. Some people don't know what the state of North Carolina will do with your stuff if you haven't made a plan and don't have a will or a trust, or even advance directives and a living will. So
And, you know, Bob and I, my husband and I, just had Caroline and her husband over for dinner a couple weeks ago, and we, Bob and I went ahead and made all those plans. And, you know, she asked a lot of questions of things that I hadn't even really thought about. I thought about, you know, like, I'm going to divide my things 3 ways between my 3 children equally, you know. I'd already decided who would be the executor of my estate. I had thought about that. We both have thought about our wishes for our bodies, you know. Do we want to go on a ventilator? Do we want this? Do we want that? And so that part wasn't too bad, but then there's all these wills and trusts and rules, and if you don't designate, then the state of North Carolina is going to take something away. And I worked really hard for what I've got, and I want it to go to my children and my grandchildren. I don't want the state of North Carolina to get it.
that's right.
They get enough of my taxes every year. That's all I feel I need to pay them.
There you go.
So it's just, it's important that we think about these things. We don't want to think about them. We don't want to think about Grandma dying. We don't want to think about Aunt Susie leaving this world. But the fact is, we're all born to die, and we're all going to die unless Jesus comes and we get taken up in the clouds.
That'd be okay.
That would definitely be okay. And then I don't care about my stuff, and North Carolina can have it all.
There you go.
But we just need to, I think it's just good to be smart about what you're doing, and to be informed, and to be prepared. And, if you have problems getting out, or you just had a hip replacement and you can't, get out on your own, and your husband works every day, or nobody can get to you till the weekends, Caroline would make a house call to your home to talk to you. Or she would wait until the weekender got there, and you could meet in her office. But she's very accommodating.
There are a lot of things that we have learned to do since COVID hit.
Yes.
We communicate with clients by telephone or by Zoom. If it helps you to see my face and for me to see your face while we communicate, we do that. I can set up a Zoom meeting if you are computer savvy, or anyone in your household is. Or, like Linda said, because of my nursing background, and I'm very comfortable dealing with people in all of the different stages of life and stages of illness, and whatever you're going through. And while it's seems odd that we would, it's normal for physicians in the history of medicine to make house calls. Well, in certain situations, I think it's appropriate for attorneys to do the same thing. So if people have mobility issues and need me to come to them, I don't have a problem with that at all. And I take care of clients in this whole Eastern North Carolina region for whatever they need. And I think, like you said, having a background in healthcare and dealing with people and understanding the medical issues that they're going through, it helps me to relate and help pinpoint the right questions to ask about what it is that you're going to be going through if you're ill and you know that you're dying, or if, say, you just have high blood pressure, or you just have diabetes and you think, oh, that's no big deal. But those are high risk factors that something bad could happen without you knowing it. And part of planning is planning for who's going to take care of me if I don't die. That is just as important as having a will. The will takes care of your belongings and the things you leave behind after you're gone. But between that point where something went wrong and you had a stroke or a heart attack and you're in the hospital and you need somebody else to make sure your light bill gets paid, do you have a power of attorney? Someone appointed who you trust? Have you had someone ask you the right questions to help you decide who would be the best power of attorney in your life? And those are the kind of things that I meet with people and we talk through and try to evaluate what would be the best plan for them, so that if they get sick before they have passed away, the right people are taking care of them for their body and for their belongings. Who's going to make sure that your house stays standing and your lights get paid and all of that.
And I don't think you can assume that, oh, my Johnny will do it or my Susie will do it, because you and I have both seen enough in a hospital. Both of us have seen where, Johnny and Susie don't step up to the plate. They fall apart, or they want to lord over everybody and they're making all the decisions. And every family is different and every family has a dynamic, and some of this is kind of hard to talk about, but Mom and Dad have got to realize that Billy's really a better choice than Johnny. I mean, your kids, your family, I did not choose my oldest child to be the executor of our estate, because he can get overwhelmed really easily, and he would do his best. I know he would, but I don't know that he could do it and his sister is just minded that way. She just thinks that way, and so she got the job, and it's really a big job, so, be really mindful of who you pick for that.
It is a tremendous job. It's a great burden on whoever is chosen. And you're right, it's important to pick those people wisely and talk to those people so that they know what they're getting into.
Right.
So when they're asked, they're not surprised, not blindsided.
Right.
I have some people that I've helped recently who they're young people, probably in their 20s. I'm trying to just make it vague so to protect who they are. But they're young people. Their parent passed away. It was a single mother that passed away, and she was fairly young, in her 40s. And those 20-year-olds were not prepared and not anticipating all of the things that they would have to do with their mom's estate. And what the mom told them to do in her common sense approach to this is what I want you to do after I die, it turns out that what she said, this is what I want you to do, was not something that the state of North Carolina would have wanted them to do. So then you have to backpedal and make sure that things are being done the right way so that all of the bills can get paid, and then after that the family can benefit from the legacy that she has left behind. And so by planning on her own, she tried to plan, but she didn't understand the rules and the steps that have to be taken
To make it legal,
to make it legal, and so that the estate would be probated properly. So it's something that they had to come to me and say, okay, this is what we've done. Now, how do we fix it? And so we're in the process of fixing it and getting things straight. Where if she had met with an attorney before she passed away, and if she'd had a will, she didn't have a will. If she'd had an estate plan, the estate plan includes not just the will, but the power of attorney from before she died, and gives you an idea of what to expect, so that all of those things that she wanted to have happen could have happened in a much easier way for the people that she left behind. But we're working through it, and they're just wonderful, sweet people, and I'm privileged to be able to work with them through this challenge, and we're both learning a lot.
There you go.
But a little bit of planning in advance makes all the difference. So.
Yeah, it's really important, and and it's really important for us who are of more advanced age, such as myself, that I don't want my kids to have to make a lot of hard decisions. And I know that when my father-in-law and mother-in-law, they had a living will. So when it came time, my father-in-law was in the hospital, and the doctors wanted to put a feeding tube in him. And he had specifically said, no feeding tube. And so that was really a huge burden off of my sister-in-law. We lived in North Carolina here. They lived in Jersey, so a lot of that fell onto my sister-in-law. But it was a tremendous relief for her. She did not feel like she was creating a death sentence for her daddy, because he had decided that's what he did and did not want.
That's exactly right.
And so it's really important to do that, to get the burden off of your family as much as possible, because it's tough. I'm sure everybody that's watching this show has lost somebody, and you know how hard it is, especially if it's a parent, because even though we know our parents are going to go, we only got one mommy and we only got one daddy, and when they're gone, you feel orphaned, you feel abandoned. And you probably feel that way a little bit with your mom, even though she's still here, but she's got a debilitating disease and doesn't know you like she did before. And
that's right.
So
it's hard. And she, when she was doing well and was able, she set out a plan of what she wanted to happen. She talked about it with the family members, and she went to an attorney and had it written down so that we don't have to wonder. All we need to do is look at what she said before and look at what she wrote down, and we're following her instructions. We're not imposing what we want onto her.
Right.
We are just supporting her in what she told us that she wanted. And for folks who don't want to talk about it because it's not a happy subject, it's likely there could come a day when what they, particularly their own wants, and are not honored because they didn't tell anybody what they wanted. If you just tell folks, then we can do something about it. But if you keep it to yourself, then there's no chance. You're just going to have people guessing, what would you have done if you could tell us, if you could guide us? And what advanced planning is all about, and setting an estate plan, is to be able to do what you want in the most effective way possible, whether it's financially or with your physical health.
Yeah, and Dr. Boyette, he talked a lot about pain control, in your last days, especially if you've got cancer and things like that, pain is something that we can do pretty well at. And he admitted that, he only knew how to do post-operative pain. That's what he was trained as a gynecologist and surgeon, was, post-operative pain. And so he's had to learn how to not only deal with the pain for the patient, but then deal with the family and say, it's okay for mom to have a little bit more morphine, because we're all, she had 10 milligrams, and people worry. And
the goal is different. The goals of pain control are very different post-operatively, or if you've sprained your ankle, or broke a bone. Those the goal of taking care of you is completely different than if you're in end of life. There are a lot of things where, like you said, people are concerned, but if we give her too much medicine, she'll get addicted.
Right.
But that's not the point.
No.
That's not the point of end of life care. At that point, you're not worried about someone becoming addicted. Your mindset should not be on that at all. It should be on comfort.
Right.
And for people who need medicine to be comfortable, or if they need to talk about things that are uncomfortable for those around them, we say, we just don't want to hear about what might happen. Well, what kind of relief to their mind would you give them by saying, let's talk about this? Because sometimes we've got physical pain with those end-of-life things, and you've got emotional pain too. And the burden of thinking, well, what's going to happen to my loved one? What's going to happen to my spouse? What's going to happen to my kids? If I'm gone, how are they going to get through? And talking about those things really has an opportunity to relieve some of that emotional pain by giving people peace of mind as they're approaching. But it's not just for end of life. So we keep going back to that as if those are the only people. But maybe even for us, it's easier to talk about end of life in those situations. But I don't feel like I'm at end of life. You're certainly not, but we're both.
I don't feel it. But I know that I could get in a car wreck after the show tonight. So, I'm glad that I'm prepared. But it's time for our first break. So when we come back, we'll talk more about this. If you have any questions at all about anything in the medical field, whether it's end of life or your wife is pregnant, for the beginning of life, we will talk about that. So give us a call at 407-1111. We'll be right back after these sponsors. Don't go away.
At Down East Hearing Care Associates, we are dedicated to taking care of every client by providing personal, high-quality hearing care services. My staff and I know hearing loss affects each person and their loved ones differently, so we give you the time and the care you need to ensure the hearing technology chosen fits your lifestyle. At Down East Hearing Care, we also make custom ear molds and specialize in emergency hearing aid repairs. Down East Hearing Care Associates has 2 locations, one in Knightdale and one in Rocky Mount. We have hearing lives to save.
Hi, I'm Richard Cuss, pharmacist and owner of Almonds Drug Store here in Rocky Mount. Here today with my wife and 2 daughters. For over 75 years, Almonds Drug Store has been the pharmacy of choice for residents of Edgecombe and Nash County. Our family is proud to call Rocky Mount home, and we are excited about the new services and products we are adding daily at both of our Almonds Drug Store's locations and also at our medical supply store.
Come in and see us at Almonds Medical Supply. We're an extension of Almonds Drug Stores, your local hometown pharmacy. We're here to service all your needs, from wheelchairs to walkers to orthopedic supports to compression hose to hard-to-find wound care supplies. And you'll always get that hometown customer service.
We want our patients to pay the best prices, get the best service available, and have a better pharmacy experience than they will get anywhere else. Our staff is committed to going above and beyond to meet our patients' needs. Whether it is working with your provider to get you the best medication at the best price, contacting your provider to get you refills or a prior authorization, or taking the time to review each of your medications with you personally, or perhaps even helping you find an old-time remedy or other hard-to-find items, your Almonds Drug Store staff will work hard to meet your pharmacy needs. At Almonds, we will deliver your prescriptions for free. Both of our stores have drive-through windows, we guarantee short wait times, and our pharmacists will come out to greet you personally and answer any questions you have. If you want to be met with a smiling face, or even want someone to greet you by name when you walk through the doors, we are the pharmacy for you.
Call Almonds Drugs today.
443-3138 or 446-0014.
Welcome. I was just telling Caroline, my phone's been blowing up over here. My son-in-law has a good friend. He was a nephrologist and worked at Johns Hopkins, and he just passed away from COVID. So Sarah and her husband are going up to DC this weekend, and so I was getting all the news. So I apologize for all the dings. But anyway, what did we say was a good segue?
You mentioned before the break that, this kind of planning is important for people, whether they're at the beginning of life or the end of life, because even people who are young and healthy and starting new families and have young children, those people also need to have an estate plan. Part of the estate plan is picking and designating who would be your child's guardian if you weren't there. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's always the possibility that, if there's more than one parent in the household, that both of you could be in a car together and something horrible happened. We don't like to think about that, but that is the reality. That what if both of you were gone at the same time? Who would take care of your kids? And that's part of the estate plan, is to talk about who would be the best fit. You mentioned that in your family, the automatic thought is, well, the oldest should do this. And the oldest isn't always the one who's best suited.
Right. Not
and
the best
if
choice.
you have kids and you have a sibling, your sibling might not be the best choice for raising your kids. It could be your best friend instead, or your cousin, or your aunt. But by having an estate plan, you get to pick. Mm-hmm. It puts you in charge of who would be the best fit for your family, for what it is that you want to accomplish. Some people would even choose someone who shares their faith,
right,
rather than someone who's biologically related
right.
to them.
Right.
And having an estate plan, having a will, and designating who you want to be the guardian over your kids can make all the difference in how they live the rest of their childhoods into adulthood. Mm-hmm. It's also important, I think, that by doing this, you can choose multiple people who are involved. You can say, this is the person I want the kids to live with, to take care of them, because they have this incredible bond with my kids, but they may not be the best financial choice, and you wouldn't want all the funds to follow them. Well, you can pick a different person to be in charge of the funds, and they will work together in tandem, so that one would be in charge of the person of your children and one would be in charge of the estate or the funds. Mm-hmm. And so by planning ahead, you can pick and choose and devise a plan that's going to be best for you, for your kids, for your family, whether they are infants or teenagers or heading off to college.
Right.
So
My last will, I haven't got everything, Caroline's working on mine now, but my previous will, Bob's sister we asked if she would take the kids if something would happen to Bob and I. I don't have any sisters or brothers, and Bob had the one sister, and she graciously accepted, and that was the last will I have, and my youngest child is going to be 37.
So now you have grandkids
Yes.
that you're worried about and trying
Yes.
to make sure that they have their,
Yes.
everything in a row for them.
Absolutely.
And you have people in your family who are going off to college.
Yes.
And it's important, I think, part of, planning and estate planning is making sure that you have healthcare documents in place for kids who go off to college. You're a healthcare provider. If I had a child who was 19 years old and they were in college and they got hurt and they were at the doctor's office, what would happen if I called to check on them?
Well, if you are not signed in as somebody that we can talk to about their condition, I could not tell you a thing.
What if they're on my health insurance, though? I'm the parent. They're
Nope.
on my health insurance. You
Nope.
should be able to tell me
Nope.
what happened. Why are they in the hospital?
Can't do it.
Can't do it. What we can do in advance to prepare for that when your kids are going off to college, there are 2 documents we can do. 2 pieces of paper that you can get in advance and tuck them away. You may never need them, and I hope people never do, but those are to have a HIPAA release form, which allows any healthcare provider to share any confidential health information about your child. It can be a child, it could be a young adult. We say a child, but if they're in college and they're over 18, legally they have
Right.
the ability to make decisions for themselves.
right.
But you can prepare for that in advance and use that document to collect healthcare information. And if they move past that in a stage of life and they get married and that life has moved on, you can end that contract. You can tear up that document and not use it anymore. The other thing you can do for those I keep wanting to call them kids. For those people who are in college, they're not quite independent. They don't have other people to turn to if something should happen. If your person in college should have COVID or a car accident or a broken leg from who knows what, who's going to be there to sign their medical documents and help them through making those decisions or even collect information? And that would be a healthcare power of attorney. A healthcare power of attorney, it does not have to last forever. If someone grows into a situation where they've graduated from college and now they have other family relationship, they have a spouse, that can transition and be their spouse rather than their parent or whoever their guardian has been when they were minors. But once you hit 18, you have to have documents in order for the hospital to be able to do that. So if I had a 19-year-old in college at East Carolina University, great school, but if I had a child there or a family member there and I showed up and I had a HIPAA document and a healthcare power of attorney, now what can you tell me?
I can tell you everything.
Everything. And I can find out what medicines they need,
Yep.
what's wrong with them,
Yep.
what surgeries they need,
Yep.
what they need to do after they get discharged from the hospital.
That's right.
Because those 2 documents fill that gap. So that's, I
Yeah.
think, something that people don't recognize. They
Right.
think, well, they're still my dependent.
Right.
They're on my insurance.
Right.
They're still my kids. I should be able to know everything that's going on. And in our hearts, we should. But it doesn't work that way.
But not by the law.
Not by the law.
And we have to go by, healthcare workers have to go by the law,
And
so,
so do attorneys.
yes. So I can't, even if you're my best friend.
That's right.
And I know how desperately you love Anna, and I can't tell you a thing.
That's
You
right.
know, it's just not what I can do, so.
I think everybody should have a will, and anybody going off to college should have a designated healthcare power of attorney.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they can pay your bills. That's a whole different separate power of attorney. North Carolina has them separate. So you have a healthcare power of attorney for all of your healthcare decisions, and you have a general durable power of attorney for all your financial decisions. We can draft both of those. If you have a person who's gone off to college and they have an apartment and they have bank accounts that are just their own personal bank accounts, and they're, for all intents and purposes, they are adults. They are young adults.
So what would happen? Let's say my kid's at ECU, he falls off of a cliff and passes, and he's got, all these bills, and he's got $10,000 in his checking account. What happens? Do I get the money out so I can pay the bills?
Not automatically. You would first get a copy of his death certificate, and you would go to the estates division of the clerk of court in the county where he resided, and you would open an estate file, an estate with that county, and then you would have to go through all of the process of probating his estate. Before you can go to the bank and access his bank accounts, unless your name was on those accounts or he had planned ahead and put down someone who was a beneficiary at payable on death through that bank, you don't have access to those funds until the clerk of court in the estates division gives you letters of administration. If he had a will, anybody over 18 can have a will in North Carolina. He could have had an estate plan and a simple will that named who his executor would be. His executor can get permission much faster than an administrator in some cases, and get access to those funds so that you can, whoever's in that role has to find what are all the bills that are due and what are all the assets that we have to pay those bills, and manage to prioritize according to a law which ones have to be paid first.
So if my 20-year-old granddaughter handwrites a will, is that legal?
It can be. There are certain things that she would have to include in it, and I'm reluctant to give you all of the things that have to be in it, because every time I go back to the rules, it's like every time. Well, these haven't changed a lot over a period of time, but every time I go back to that list and make sure that I have every single element that needs to be there. If you handwrite a will, it can be valid, but you have to verify with the statute to make sure that you have handwritten the whole thing, that you have signed it in your own handwriting, that you have dated that will, and there's some special language that it helps a lot if you put that in there.
And the common man probably doesn't know that special language.
Probably not. It's not intuitive, all of it. North Carolina we're fortunate in North Carolina that handwritten wills that are completely handwritten can be probated and can be recognized as valid wills if they meet all of the criteria and check all of the blocks. And there are some recipes that I've done those recipes 100 times, but I'm still going to check the recipe and make sure I didn't miss an ingredient. And this is one of those things when I'm doing wills and doing, you mentioned that I was doing a will for you. Every time I go back to my list and did I get this one? Did I get this one? And make sure, and everything has to be just so. It's not a crock-pot recipe where you just throw in everything. It's very methodical and very planned out. So I would love to come back and talk about that specifically when I'm prepared for that, to tell you exactly what needs to be in a handwritten will.
It's a general question.
Yeah. But yes, there are some times that even a college student could handwrite a will and say, this is my last will and testament, this is my name, this is where I live, and this is what I want to have happen, and then sign it in their own handwriting. One important thing is don't mix the typing and the handwriting. It has to be all handwritten if you're going to handwrite it. So.
Oh, or can you type and just sign?
Nope.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Nope.
Who knew? I didn't know.
Nope. Don't mix it up.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is all kind of gruesome, especially when we talk about the young, but it really is very important. And I think it's really important for us moms and dads, as we age a little bit, might have a few medical problems. Maybe you're going to get a knee replacement, and that's a pretty standard, simple surgery these days, but there's always a risk for surgery. There's always a possibility you're going to throw a blood clot and stop breathing, or, and you're explained all of those risks when you have surgery. But we take a lot of things for granted. Oh, he's got pneumonia. He'll get some antibiotics and he'll be fine. Well, most times that's true. But then there can be an underlying lung issue that nobody really knew about, and that pneumonia is now life-threatening. So we just need to be wise and be cognizant and to use the brains God gave us. And that's one reason for this show. Just I want everybody who needs some of these wills or estate planning, or she does real estate closings, things like that. I want everybody to use Caroline because she's my friend.
Well, thank you.
But really, we want you to do what's best for you. And if your Uncle Jerry is an attorney, well, you call Uncle Jerry and get that squared away. She's not here just to say, I want the work. No, she's here to help me provide you with the information that we need to make these wise decisions.
There are lots of fine attorneys in this community.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't, of course, I would be happy to help, but if you have someone that you already have a relationship with that has helped you before, go back to that person that you trust. It's about preparing for the future and providing people with the education and information that they need to make a good and informed decision, because choosing to do nothing is a choice.
And it's a bad choice.
We don't have to choose to do nothing.
Right.
We can choose to do something and plan for the future. Because other than that, then you just chose to let your family flounder on their own without knowing what you want.
Right.
So.
Right. All right, it's time for our next break. So when we come back, we'll talk some more about all of this stuff. And if you have a question, you can give us a call. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more of Here's to Your Good Health. Hang on.
At Downey's Hearing Care Associates, we are dedicated to taking care of every client by providing personal, high-quality hearing care services. My staff and I know hearing loss affects each person and their loved ones differently, so we give you the time and the care you need to ensure the hearing technology chosen fits your lifestyle. At Downey's Hearing Care, we also make custom ear molds and specialize in emergency hearing aid repairs. Downey's Hearing Care Associates has 2 locations, one in Knightdale and one in Rocky Mount. We have hearing lives to save.
Hi, I'm Richard Goss, pharmacist and owner of Almonds Drug Store here in Rocky Mount. Here today with my wife and 2 daughters. For over 75 years, Almonds Drug Store has been the pharmacy of choice for residents of Edgecombe and Nash County. Our family is proud to call Rocky Mount home, and we are excited about the new services and products we are adding daily at both of our Almonds Drug Store's locations and also at our medical supply store.
Come in and see us at Almonds Medical Supply. We're an extension of Almonds Drug Stores, your local hometown pharmacy. We're here to service all your needs, from wheelchairs to walkers to orthopedic supports, compression hose to hard-to-find wound care supplies. And you'll always get that hometown customer service.
We want our patients to pay the best prices, get the best service available, and have a better pharmacy experience than they will get anywhere else. Our staff is committed to going above and beyond to meet our patients' needs. Whether it is working with your provider to get you the best medication at the best price, contacting your provider to get you refills or a prior authorization, or taking the time to review each of your medications with you personally, or perhaps even helping you find an old-time remedy or other hard-to-find items, your Almonds Drug Store staff will work hard to meet your pharmacy needs. At Almonds, we will deliver your prescriptions for free. Both of our stores have drive-through windows, we guarantee short wait times, and our pharmacists will come out to greet you personally and answer any questions you have. If you want to be met with a smiling face, or even want someone to greet you by name when you walk through the doors, we are the pharmacy for you.
Call Almonds Drugs today.
443-3138 or 446-0014.
Hey, welcome back. This is Linda and Caroline, and we've been talking about end-of-the-life issues and why you should have a will, why you should have estates planning. But because both of us are nurses, both of us worked at Nash, both of us worked in the ER, both of us worked in ICU, we've seen a lot, and we've seen how hard and devastating it is on families when mom or dad or Uncle Bill or whoever, your loved one, is either extremely sick in the ER, maybe he coded and we've had to pounce on his chest and put a breathing tube in him, and or he's on the ventilator in the ICU, and there's all these noises, all these bells, all these whistles, all these alarms, and it's really overwhelming. It can be overwhelming for a nurse, and it certainly is overwhelming for a family.
That's true. It is overwhelming even for us. And no matter how many times we see that, and help patients go through all of those traumatic things, it doesn't get any less, it doesn't lose any importance. Every time, every person is special and important, and it's heartbreaking every single time to see people go through it. And to see the family members standing back watching it happen and feeling helpless.
Yes.
I know a lot of times those things would be happening, and one of the roles that I would take, there's a lot of different roles and a lot of different people that are coming and going through those emergency situations. One of the things I would do was stand at off to the side with the family and say, okay, what are you seeing? What questions do you have? And talk them through what it is they're seeing, why so-and-so is doing what they are to their loved one. Why is someone pushing on their chest so hard? I heard something snap. Why is that necessary? And so I would explain, these are the things you're seeing. This is what this means. This is what you can expect next. And those were, really rewarding opportunities to provide support to the family members, and that's just another role of the healthcare team. I may not be the person who's hands-on the sick person on the bed, but it's just as important to take care of the family members who are standing by.
And it's not like TV. You can't bust into these rooms. Now I think they've changed in the ER. They will let you go in sometimes. I'm not sure what the criteria is, and I don't know
what it is now with all the COVID precautions. I think things are probably very different, and I've not been in that situation in that arena since.
Right. So more than likely, you and your family members are going to be tucked away someplace in a little room or in the waiting room, and it can be it'll seem like an eternity. And there are times that somebody codes and that we feel like we've got them back, and then they crash again, and so that can string out to 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes, which is an eternity. So it's just it's hard.
It is hard.
It's just hard. I don't know all the right words to say, but
how can somebody plan for that kind of situation? What kind of things do you think would give them comfort in a time like that?
The family? Well, I think if mom and dad have said, look, I don't want anybody pushing on my chest, or I don't want a tube down my throat, I think, that would, I think it would bring the family some peace if the doctor came and said, well, if we don't put her on the vent, she's probably going to pass. Well, mama didn't want to be on the vent, and we have to let her go. I think that would bring some, it's never easy.
Right.
And we never want our loved ones to go. But I think that if we'd already talked about all that with mom and dad, that it would be easier.
Is that something that you talk about with patients in your office when they come in
Yes.
for visits?
Yes.
And how does that come about as a conversation with people? And, if you just come in for a regular well check and a regular routine visit, then how do you bring that up?
Well, there's something called an annual wellness visit that Medicare pays for. And so part of that is, one of the questions asked is if you have made your decision. And most of the time, the nurse will say, have you made, how's it worded?
I know when I was working in the hospital, we used to ask people, do you have an Advance Directive?
Yeah, that's it.
And people would go,
I don't know.
I don't know what that is.
Or I don't want to do it now, or something.
Yeah.
So I normally, I know most of my patients, so you can be a very young 85-year-old, or you can be a really old 65-year-old.
That's true.
Depending upon illness and that kind of thing. And so I will say, did the nurse ask you about the Advance Directive? I don't know what that is. And so then I'll pull out the paperwork and show it to them and give it to them. I try to do that, and I probably set my age. I mean, everybody's different, but as a general rule, about 75. Up until that age, especially if I know they're still going golfing every weekend and they swim in the summer, you don't worry about them. Although we never know. I guess maybe that isn't a good plan. But and then some people, you bring it up and they just get mad.
Right.
But I bring it up. So I usually do it at that annual wellness visit.
So you've mentioned that some people get mad about having to confront their mortality and talk about end of life. Do you think those same people know what's going to happen if they do nothing?
Probably not.
So one of the things that I encourage people to do is, like we've been talking about this hour, is to draft a will, to work with an attorney, work with someone who understands the statutes and the laws that govern drafting a will, because the state of North Carolina has a set of rules that if you die and you don't have a will, they will assign who gets what for you after you're gone and you don't have any control over it. And it follows a statute. The people who wrote that statute may not know that you have a blended family and you love your stepkids just like you love your biological kids. They may not know that, well, I have been separated from my spouse or ex, or we haven't actually gotten divorced, but we haven't been together for 10 years. We've lived in separate households, but the state of North Carolina still sees you as married. So these are all things that people need to know in order to plan an effective will, to make sure that their assets go where they want them to go. And this is talking more about the stuff that you leave behind than talking about planning on how you get there. And but I think it's important that people know what happens, and the only way you can do that is to talk to an attorney you trust, or give me a call and have me go over what your options are according to the laws and the statutes of North Carolina, because every single person's situation and family is different. They're all a little bit different. There's no cookie cutter, and it's not. Yes, you can do a will by yourself. I have people ask me that all the time. Well, can't I just go online and download a form and fill in the blanks? Yes. The short answer is yes. The complicated answer is, well, I could change the oil in my own car if I really wanted to, but it probably wouldn't be safe to drive thereafter. Because I'm not a mechanic. That's not what I've been trained to do. And so just like I wouldn't change the oil in my own car, I would never suggest that somebody just download a form and fill in the blanks, because those cookie cutter forms, while they do work for some situations, it doesn't take into account all of the things that each individual needs. So please consult an attorney or someone who can advise you on the best way to make a plan. talk to your doctor. If you need medicines, if you want a health care plan, you know, how many things do we see that say, consult your doctor before starting this vitamin, before
That's right.
starting this diet,
That's right.
before starting this exercise routine. Consult someone who knows what's going on,
That's right.
knows about you and your health care condition. So talk to your doctor. If you need that kind of advice, please talk to a legal professional if you need legal advice. And talk to a mechanic if you need car advice, because I can't help you with that. I can't change my own oil and prove that, you know, and believe that my car is safe to drive. So
That's what I have husband and sons for.
There you go.
Anyway, thanks so much for watching. It's time for us to say goodnight. And so, good night, and I'll see you next week with more of Here's to Your Good Health. Thanks, Caroline, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. We have a good time every time. All right, good night, all.